Before we get
a quick further reason.
Go ahead.
COVID is fresh in my memory because I was in bed with it last weekend. COVID will be fresh in the memory of many other people because of things like furlough. And the fact that we needed to run a very large, record-breaking deficit in the UK to support people and businesses through COVID. That was possible because the UK government could create new money to pay for that deficit. The idea that a single penny of the expenditure on COVID was funded by a taxpayer is complete nonsense. Not a single penny of the COVID expenditure came from the taxpayer. It all came from money creation by the Bank of England because, as I said before, they tapped a few numbers into one of those, and that's what they did. But if we come to the situation where Scotland is using sterling, and there's another similar crisis, let's say we have a cost of living crisis because the cost of energy goes up to £6,000 a year for some households, and we have to actually issue new money to support them so that they can actually not have to make a choice between heating and food over the coming winter. If that was necessary, an independent Scotland could not make that decision, but only if it didn't have its own currency, but it could if it did have its own currency. In other words, don't have your own currency, and basically your economic and social policies are chopped off at the knees. You can't do what you want because you haven't got the money and the ability to create the money to deliver what the people of your country want. If you want to shackle the people of Scotland to the Bank of England and to leave them in poverty, by all means use sterling. Otherwise, heavens above, within a fortnight of independence, that new currency has to be on the road.
Before we get to the next audience question, or the online question, what is the risk of capital flight for Scotland?
Zero. Because, firstly, the introduction of the Scottish pound is voluntary, so you do not have to change your sterling into Scottish pounds if you don't want to. Fundamental principle. Now, as a simple example, if you imagine that this room is divided into two halves, and that all of this side over here have got their saltire underpants on underneath, and that they're ardent yes supporters, while the lot over there, including John and Andrew in the front row here, they've got their Union Jack underpants on, and they're all secretly low voters. Now, if I said that last night at midnight I confiscated all your sterling and converted it to Scottish pounds, this lot's going to be very happy. That lot is going to be horrified. And the moment the banks open, they'll be down to the bank to try and change their new Scottish pounds back to the sterling that they wanted. So if you make it compulsory, all you do is guarantee that the currency crashes on the first day of trading. So you don't do that. You make it voluntary. It's only voluntary, sort of. Well, it's not really voluntary because, as Richard said, you're going to have to pay your tax bill, and you'll find that you need to use the Scottish pound in the shops and when you go to a restaurant and so forth. But Ruth Davidson can keep her savings and her £350 a day from the House of Lords in sterling under the mattress if that's what she wants to do. So you don't have to change your sterling into Scottish pounds. So there's no need for anyone to move their sterling. Now, in fact, because of the practicalities of this, we will actually move your sterling for you shortly before the Scottish currency comes into use. And that's because your sterling bank account will need to be moved to an English bank. So that's if you're using, say, RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, which is the Scottish part of NatWest Banking Group, your sterling account will be moved to NatWest. And it'll stay exactly as it will say the same cards and all the rest of it as it is at the moment, same account number, whatever, but it will just be legally moved to English. And you will get a new account at RBS, which will be in Scottish pounds. So nobody needs to move their sterling out of Scotland because it's going to do that anyway, but there is no compulsion whatsoever to change sterling into Scottish pounds if you don't want to do so. So if you have £1 million that you want to keep in sterling, you're welcome to keep it in sterling. So there is no need for any currency flight. That's a red herring that just demonstrates a lack of understanding of the process.
Richard, would you like to jump in before we have our next question?
I've written a couple of books on capital flight, taxation, and all that sort of abuse, and I can't add anything to what Tim has said. He's absolutely spot on. So I won't delay proceedings by waffling about something where Tim's already covered the ground.
I don't know if people are too familiar with the British Constitution Group. There's a gentleman in it called Justin Walker. His ancestor was a member of the Treasury at one point, years before. And just before the First World War, they issued a note called the Bradbury Pound. It was issued by John Bradbury. Yes. It was printed within 4 days, and it was backed by the sweat of the people. It was accumulated by the wealth of the country, the nation, plus the GDP, things like that. So, say Britain was worth 70 trillion, you could automatically leverage a trillion in cash and get that on the streets. Now, it was a highly welcomed currency system that got phased out after it actually paid for the First World War, because Britain was actually sliding off a cliff back then as well in the economy. So why couldn't we have a John Bradbury type pound and use that backed by the sweat of the people and the economic wealth, resources and manufacturing?
Could you rephrase the question concisely, just so we know when?
Yeah, well, instead of having a debt currency, which would be a fiat currency, why can't we have it backed by something that's tangible, by the sweat of the people?
I think there's a misunderstanding there. So all currencies that exist at the moment are what are called fiat currencies, which just means that they're legally declared to be a currency. They are all backed by the power of the state, and the state is us. So there's nothing physical backing any currency. There isn't a stash of gold or something like that. The currency, as Richard said, it's worth something because you have to pay tax bill in that currency, and the stability and otherwise of the state, the good governance, the competence, the strength of the economy, those are what back every currency. The Swiss currency is very strong because Switzerland is a exquisitely run country that has a very long, sort of several hundred years track record of managing everything very nicely and so forth. Germany, the euro is a strong currency fairly because it has the power of the German economy behind it. Something like Venezuela is a disastrous currency because it's completely disorganised and has managed to get itself in a complete mess. So that's what underlies your currency. So the Scottish pound will be implicitly backed by the strength of the Scottish economy and our innovations and hard work and the competence of the Scottish government and so on. So we don't need any special currency to do that. That's just what's going to happen.
Richard, would you like to?
Can I just explain the question? And I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, but the question's got the question the wrong way round. The thing was that actually the English currency, the UK currency, if you like, used in 1914 was on the gold standard. It was backed by something physical. And the reality was that we didn't have enough gold to pay for the First World War. So the Bradbury pound was in fact a fiat currency. And a fiat currency is simply a promise to pay. And you know that all money is a promise to pay because it's printed on a note now, or it'll be printed on solid notes, it says. Is it on your notes in? No response. But actually, the Bradbury pound is the fiat currency which worked to solve the problems in funding the First World War, and it was the standard currency issued by the Treasury at the time, the Bank of England at the time, which was gold backed, which didn't work. We now only have fiat currencies. There are almost no non-fiat currencies in the world, and for Scotland to do something out of step with the rest of the world when it came to currency, trying to back by gold or silver or whatever else, would be completely off the scale of madness. It would collapse the currency overnight.
Okay, given the profundity of the questions and answers, we are running a little short of time, but I do want to give time for one more question and a response, and both of our
So on your Tim, on your plan for getting new currency, you're right in your observation that we can exchange our sterling accounts and then move that into foreign exchange reserves, around 50 to 60 billion, depending how much you exchange. You're inspired that from the Commonweal paper, but Peter Ryan says, just from his view, that he thinks that's not possible, despite the fact you reference countries that already did that. So I'm just wondering from you, what's your view on that? Why do you think Peter Ryan's wrong on that? And how, to a degree, how much emphasis do you put on foreign reserves when we're already using our fiat currency?
Sorry, wrong about what specifically?
So the disagreement is,
Okay.
yeah.
It's unfortunately, it gets a bit technical. But what the Scottish Reserve Bank ends up with is the reserve account balances which the commercial banks currently have with the Bank of England. So at the moment, in what it is, 2020 accounts, RBS PLC, which as I said is the 11% of NatWest Group that is based in Scotland, they had 27 billion on deposit at the Bank of England. That's the bank's reserves. And that was against their balance sheet, which was 92 billion. Now, when RBS's customers have moved all of their money into RBS Scotland as the new Scottish pound account, so the 92 billion balance sheet has moved to Scotland and the Scottish pound, that means that the 27 billion that RBS had in the Bank of England now belongs to the Scottish Reserve Bank, and RBS has a new 27 billion Scottish pounds in its Scottish Reserve Bank account. So effectively, at the end of the conversion process, what the Scottish Reserve Bank ends up with as the foreign reserves is the current Bank of England balances of our banks. So it's not all of the money. Effectively, it's the difference between our savings and our liabilities, our assets and our liabilities. So people in Scotland at the moment have about 200 billion of sterling cash. And we have about 130 to 140 billion of sterling loans. So if you use the cash to repay the loans, you end up with about 60 billion or so. That's our net assets, and that's what becomes the property, the foreign reserves of the central bank.
And Richard,
Can I just think here that all the money is double entry bookkeeping. Now, double entry bookkeeping is the most exciting subject on earth. But that's what Peter Ryan does not understand. He doesn't get that it's double entry. And as far as I can see, he hasn't done the double entry. Tim and I have been very boring about this. I mean, to be honest, we are a pair of geeks. We have talked about the double entry until we get to this life. We both know it. I published it on my blog. I've done it elsewhere. We are sure that this double entry works, and there is literally nothing else to money but double entry, because it's a core to your promises. Your promise to pay the bank's promise to pay you, that's what makes money, nothing else to it. So I do believe that we actually have got this, but there's another point to add in. The obsession with reserves is inappropriate if the Scottish currency is allowed to float on the foreign exchange markets. And the Scottish currency must be allowed to float on the foreign exchange markets. The comparison that is always drawn is between Scotland and Denmark. Now, I happen to know Denmark reasonably well because I happen to be on the staff at Copenhagen Business School, which is, as you may well be familiar, located in Denmark. So they have their own currency, but they pay it to the euro as a consequence. Because they pay it, and it's not wise in my opinion that they do, but they've done it, and that's their policy, they need a significant foreign currency reserve so that if somebody decides to attack their currency and say, we're going to try and make some money by trying to destabilise your relationship with the euro, Denmark needs substantial foreign exchange reserves to try to defend that value in exchange. If only it floated, which is what I've just said Scotland should do, there wouldn't be anyone to defend the value of the Scottish pound. And therefore, if somebody tried to attack it, it would be completely pointless because they couldn't make a profit, because they can only make a profit if someone defends the value. So actually saying they're going to float removes the risk of there ever being an attack in the first place. It's really that simple. But you don't need reserves in that case, because you're not going to try and defend something which you would say is indefensible. Take substantial foreign currency reserves, which are based almost entirely in sea dollars compared to their are wholly misplaced anyway.
Okay, well, let's have a round of applause for our. Richard, I'm not sure to what extent you're aware, but we actually had released the Scottish currency at the banknotes.
I know.
And we will, I'm sure that Tim will get you a copy of it. No, the real currency. So, thank you everybody, and again, thank you so much.